let's get started. Who would like to start and tell us, we want to do this fairly briefly, but who are you and what is a question that you have or a topic that you'd like to see? And you can say 2 topics, but quickly, and then whoever starts, you're also volunteering the people on either side of you follow. All right, Mallory, yeah, start in the back.
So I'm Mallory Conlon. I am a learning technology consultant with Fortnite UW, and I help support Pressbooks and Storylines. So I'm really interested in learning what sort of support is needed for those tools amongst the people who are interested in using it or already using it.
All right.
Because we're here for you.
For Pressbooks and Storyline. Very good. Andrew, are you next?
Yeah, I'm Andrew. I'm a learning technology systems administrator, also known as Madison team. I work a lot with Mallory. Ditto for topics.
All right. Excellent. Lizzie.
I'm Lizzie, I'm a PhD candidate in curriculum instruction, and I use Pressbooks to present at a conference with technology and language learning. So I have and culture. So I have a couple of sites that I use for learning the culture of India and learning the German language. So I want to share some of my experiences
Excellent.
as an instructor, but then I gave it to other colleagues who were the sample or guinea pig student that would go through it and say like what was right or wrong with it.
All right, we'll call on you about Pressbooks. Sid or Margaret?
Go ahead, Sid. I'm Sid Freitag, program manager with Do It Academic Technology. I'm here to listen, find out what people are interested in, and if there's anything we might develop programs around.
All right. John?
John Fisher, LMS manager, I don't know, at WIDA within WCER within the School of Ed. So, and so basically I, deal in Canvas and I work with Barney and Kevin here. What I'm really interested in getting out of today is right now we are working on, we use Articulate, Storyline, Rise, 360. And the short version is we really don't like how Canvas incorporates these things in terms of bring it in, it's an assignment, click this button, it goes to a new page. Now refresh your page and come back to, we're looking at alternatives to integrate our Articulate modules and would just be interested in what other alternatives folks have come up with.
All right. I put integration in quotes.
Super.
Kevin?
And Kevin Forgard from WIDA as well, I'm an instruction designer there. And for those of you who know me, it's glad to see you again.
All right.
It's the same idea. Like thinking of like how we integrate. So we're using these tools, and how we make them seamless within Canvas.
I see a lot of nods. All right.
Yeah. Maybe it's gonna be a good conversation here.
Yeah. All right. Integration. Kevin?
Hi, Kevin Thompson, instructional designer with Do It Academic Technology. Very similarly, I've worked a lot with Storyline, but not so much for academic types of courses. So I'm curious to see if anyone has used it in that realm. Also really struggle with the Canvas integration in quotes. So hopefully something will change in the future to make that a little bit better.
And just a quick note, if you're not familiar with what Storyline looks like, one of the first examples in the C Program and Learning in Action, that's one of the sites was created by or shared with by Kevin. So thank you.
Okay, I'm sorry.
Okay, yeah.
Because I forgot to mention, is there any sort of theoretical sort of foundations? Because I've done a little bit of research into this. If anyone's interested in talking about that, I'll put that down.
Yeah.
Like
So
transaction distance.
the learning theory or
Yeah, like the theory. What's the theory that we're using? Learning theories, I guess.
Great.
Integration theory. Sorry, but
no worries. Thank you.
I forgot.
No worries.
Lauren?
Lauren Rosen, I work with a lot of language educators around the state. And I do LTI integration into Canvas with other tools, not these. And I've seen some positives and negatives, so I'm curious to see how these integrate with Canvas and compare in my own head.
Okay, good. It'd be good to have some comparisons. Margaret?
I'm Margaret. I work with John in Active Teaching Lab. My background is instructional design, and I'm a graduate student at the high school.
Naomi?
I'm Naomi. I'm an instructional consultant working with MTLE and Excel, and a PhD candidate. So my interest is largely in open education and platforms that are open platforms, and we have that integration work. So Pressbooks is really integrated with the open education community, and they're improving their Canvas connections right now. So that's my motivation for me.
All right, free the data.
My name's Cliff. I work with Do It along with John and half the people on that side of the room, and I'm just here to learn.
All right.
My name's Michelle. I'm a new instructional designer at AT. And Pressbooks, actually, the word Pressbooks brought me here. I've done a lot of content authoring in iBooks, so I wanted to see maybe what the similarities or differences are. Oh, it's now Apple Books. I guess they don't call it iBooks anymore. So.
All right, I'm going to add versus others, and that way you can talk about your iBooks, and you said Storyline. There was another one that you guys mentioned.
There's Storyline Rise.
Rise.
Yeah,
I've not heard of Rise.
Our Articulate 360 products.
Okay. So we'll talk a little bit about some comparisons as well. Good. Carolyn.
I'm Carolyn Daughtry-Krill, and I also work as an instructional designer here at Do It Academic Technology. And so similar boat as Kevin Thompson, I've developed a lot of Articulate products for non-academic courses, for workforce development, training type of things, and not so much for academic ones. So I'm kind of curious about, it takes a lot of time and effort to build something. So if you put that effort in, is it something that's sustainable and can live for a while throughout your semesters and delivery, or is your subject something that's going to be changing often that you need to edit often? And yeah, just curious what others are doing as well.
That's a huge effort versus sustainability. Like we've all built things, and then the next year something changes, and it's like, oh, I just wasted last year. Right. Good. Kathy.
Kathy Hendricks, School of Veterinary Medicine. I've been working in Articulate for a couple years now. So kind of how to, because there's such a steep learning curve and it's kind of difficult to kind of spread that love out amongst your peers or your colleagues. So I have faculty that are always like, can I please make the changes? And so what's your tips and tricks to kind of get around that? And I'm just really glad to meet everybody here, because I kind of feel like I'm by myself over the school doing all this stuff. So it's really good to be able to meet other colleagues better.
Excellent. Lisa.
I'm Lisa Burley. I am a trainer in, research safety, biological safety. This is my colleague Lisa, who's in chemical safety. But we're here because we both are trying to push to get Articulate software. We've used Captivate and Camtasia, but similarly putting all this effort into creating these online learning modules. And if they don't integrate well into Canvas, is it worth us going through all of this if it's not going to produce what we want it to produce? So
Awesome.
we're here to learn about integration.
Yeah. Lisa.
I guess I would also, if it's possible, see what it looks like. Because I haven't seen a demo
All right.
for a Storyline 360.
Very good. Barney?
I'm Barney Gallagher. I work with Rita as an instructional designer, and I work with John and Kevin Forgard and the same group. And I'm really just excited to meet several people that know a lot about Articulate, and that's really good because we use a lot of that, and looking for the integration issues.
All right. And you, yeah.
Vivian from Department of Medicine. I'm very curious to hear you guys talk about the integration problems. I'm curious what that's all about, and also the point that Kevin brought up is the learning theory behind this, because we're pushing for this, but I don't know how to sort of sell this to people.
Right.
Why they should use this.
All right. And I like how you phrase it. You guys know the answers about integration, right? This is this is obviously a thing that is still needing to be worked out. One of the interesting observations I want to make is there are a lot of instructional technologists in this room today. And that's kind of an interesting thing. So I work in faculty engagement, and I love you guys. I'm supposed to be hitting faculty. So bring your faculty that you work with, because they need to be in this too. Although for today's topic, these are not things that faculty want to deal with, right?
That's right.
So it doesn't make sense. They're like, I don't want to deal with this. This is why I have you guys. Figure it out and then make it happen so that it is seamless for us. And so it's perfectly, thank you for coming. And if you have brought faculty with you, they might be bored unless they really geek out on this kind of stuff. So what did we think? What are let's start with integration because, let's start with what does it look like? UEN was another one who contributed an example in the, what does it look like with the articulate storyline demo for the med school. So if you have a laptop or tablet, Storyline's good on tablets, right? Does Storyline work on phones?
Yep.
All right, good. This is good. We like that. That helps with the sustainability element, right? We can access more. If you have those, you can look at those and see what they look like. Should we go through one very briefly here together? Just to sort of have a common vocabulary. Any votes?
I vote for you guys.
You vote for which one?
For you guys.
All right. Is that all right, Julia? Sure.
So it's actually a demo of Storyline itself. So it
Beautiful.
basically shows you what Storyline can do.
All right. So here's the splash page. Got a big start course thing here. What is it? Got previous and next buttons. Just quick question that I have is, will my arrow keys work for this or do I have to scroll and click? All right, I'm gonna scroll and click on this one.
There are ways to add keyboard triggers into the project, but it by default is not.
Okay. So is it a box that I have to check or is it a script that I've got to add to every page? Is it easy?
It's a configuration settings, I believe.
Okay.
I think it is more of a checkbox.
So in settings or preferences or whatever, you can do that. All right, so that's good. All right. Oh, please take, speakers, sorry.
I hear a little bit of something.
Storyline.
Notice with HDMI settings, your computer speaker is never used.
I'll just mention with the Articulate 360, if you haven't used it, they have a big library of different people there's photographic people, there are these kind of like cartoon realistic people and then more cartoony people. And then there's also some stock photos available and lots and lots of templates. So it is nice, they have a lot of resources.
Right. So it's coming out of the speakers. I've got them turned on as loud as possible and my HDMI thing doesn't let me adjust, although when I unplugged it, I turned it up all the way. So not sure what to do here. Oh, I have an idea.
That's all right.
Audio's not very important. Okay. All right, what do we want to do? 1, 2, 3, or 4?
Yeah.
Oh, wait, they're not choices. You get next, we just read through them. All right, 4 types of slides.
So I'll just add that we are now looking at it in their tool called Review. This is not what a real user experience when you publish it.
Okay,
Like if I publish it and students access a module like this through Canvas, it will not look like this. It will not have that.
you don't have to sign in and feedback and all that sort of stuff. I see.
They
So this is
just-
a
they just see
preview
the slide.
sort of thing. Okay, that makes sense.
But I'll give a big plug for this because this changed my life when you're working with
I
faculty.
agree.
Because you just send this out, a link to them, and then they can make their comments, and it's just awesome.
So, the comment box here. So instead of having to send you an email and say, on the slide with the person who's doing this, that fourth thing, are they, and then these comments are associated with every slide.
Right.
Nice. Perfect.
And anybody who's reviewing this, you don't even have to have Storyline. You like anybody who click on this link right now could comment on it.
So the faculty don't have to sign in.
Right.
We can just go right here and add stuff. Margaret.
It's just a couple points on this. The nice thing is you send them the link, they get it, They put their comments on slide by slide, and then as the instructional designer, you would then export the comments to an Excel spreadsheet and how it's a great tool. But I wonder if we can refocus on the point of integration, because you're not gonna see the issue here.
Right.
You gotta try to publish the course and load it in Canvas.
And we did have an active teaching lab that is referred to in the activity sheet somewhere about SCORM. And it was one of those active teaching labs that was kind of, my head is here and it was up here. But it's a thing that I'm sure you guys deal with every day, right?
Yeah.
So security, I mean, this is living on Articulate servers? It's not in-house anymore, right?
Right.
Is that correct? Okay.
Just for review purposes.
And then when you do publish it and you connect it with Canvas through their fantastic integration, then is it loaded into Canvas or is it still on a site that is, can you put it in like Google Drive or Box or something like that? Where do the files go? Because we only have a gig, right?
Yeah, when you import a SCORM object into Canvas, it actually uses an LTI tool and it hosts the files on a third-party kind of cloud hosting environment. And then Canvas then just references where that hosting environment. So Canvas itself, your course and the Canvas platform does not host your SCORM package.
Okay.
They're external on a separate.
So these don't eat up your gig of space.
Correct.
Very good.
And to add on to that, I think it's important to realize that you may not need it to be SCORM. You could publish it just as an EXE and link to it as you would, is it EXE still? Or is it HTML5? There's different publishing settings so that unless you really need the SCORM,
Right.
I wouldn't use it. And in Canvas, I think you're measuring whether the student clicks the link or not. Now, if you've got a quiz set up in there, then you want the API and you want the SCORM. So that's a real question about integration that you have to consider.
If you want any gradebook type of interactivity, you do need to export it as a SCORM package at this time. Hopefully XAPI will be an option in the future. If you do export it out with just HTML5 or the Flash and HTML5 combo, then importing it into Canvas does eat up your 1 gigabyte of space, because then you're actually uploading a package of files into your Canvas file space, which really makes for a mess. Then when you're looking for other files, you have to sift through your your files that you've uploaded for these packages, which do produce a large number of files to make these work.
Could you, and have you try uploading to a Box or a Google space? Or
You could host them externally and then use an iframe.
That's how I've done it.
And then the iframe though will still be connected to the gradebook?
No.
No. All right, this is one of the big differences at this point anyway between Articulate Storyline and some of the functionality in Pressbooks as I understand it. And I'm looking for nods.
Well, I'll let Andrew talk more about this, but there are ways to get grades passed back between your Storyline modules and Canvas, as well as Pressbooks and Canvas. It is a more new way of doing things, so it's a little bit unstable sometimes. We have run into issues with it before, but I'll let Andrew talk about how that actually works if people are interested in learning how it works.
Let me point out another thing real quick before we do that, and that is that if I haven't talked to you about this already, refresh that. Yes, it is. There we go. On the activity sheet, at the very top of the activity sheet, there is this little paragraph on how to self-enroll in our Canvas course. And the reason that you might want to do that is because we have the activity sheet there, and all of the links are live in the digital version, of course. But also, if you would be willing to do things like, Mallory, how do I find out more about, or Andrew, how do I find out more about Pressbooks integration with Canvas? Are there any links or things? This is all stuff that you can add to and add your notes to. So if you're taking notes individually, stop doing that, copy them and paste them into this and share with the rest of us. Don't be so selfish.
The AD documents that I shared with you earlier that should be included in there have all the information you could ever want about integrations between Pressbooks, Storyline, and Canvas.
Great.
And we can also set up consultations if people
Including the API.
Yes, that's API stuff.
Yeah, most of our KVs deal with using XAPI, and with that you can get grades passed right to the gradebook. You can also ask me to make a very laborious learning analytics sort of report if you're interested in that kind of stuff. That's why I was hired.
To make it laborious or to make it less laborious?
Well, to do it. So yeah, Kevin, you mentioned XAPI a couple minutes ago. That's the kind of learning analytics format that we're working with.
All right, so we're getting into the technical weeds here, and in some ways, I want to direct you to the sheet to dig in to those weeds as deeply as you'd like to. And let's just call it that for integration right now, lest we go down this rabbit hole too deeply and nobody ever comes back to an active teaching lab because it was just too techy.
I think what is comforting is that there are people to help that if you want to go down that road that you can contact.
Yes.
Yeah, and don't feel bad that you didn't know about us before, because we just got hired in November.
Yeah.
So it's a new thing.
Oops. They're about to add their emails to the bottom here under notes. So that you,
Even you should contact is learndusupport@doit.with.
all right, they're gonna add that, and then
It is there.
that email will, there it is, look at that. That'll get you to the right person. Good, you're doing great. All right,
You sit in your office and you go, not it.
let's take two steps back and talk about why should we do this? What is the point of having this kind of a nope. Where did that go? Oh, I moved out of it. Oh, there it is. What is the point of having this kind of an interactive thing? Why can't students just read the book? Why go through this potentially unsustainable, really complicated integration that may or may not be worth the effort in the first place? Any ideas? Any theories?
Well, I know we like to keep them within the LMS. I don't know why, but that's what everybody always wants. They want their students to just stay inside the LMS. So if it's integrated, then it's right there and it's easy to get to.
So that's why to integrate it, but why create it in the first place? Sid?
If you're blending your course, if you want students to do some of the work that doesn't require being around other people, like reading or interacting offline, then they can come to class having done that, and they might be more prepared with questions or doing problem solving, doing things that really benefit from being in person.
In some ways, this is just a fancy text, right?
It's a learning style question. It's just another way of presenting the information.
It's another way of presenting the information, just as, when I was in 5th grade, we had the textbook, and at the end of the textbook, there were questions and maybe some quiz questions that we had to answer. And if I chose to do that, if they were assigned, I would choose to do that. But if they weren't, I would not. We can ask these same sorts of things where I cannot just scan through it and move to the next thing, and I have to get it right. It's a knowledge check for me as a student, as a learner, and it kind of forces me to at least have a better understanding. I might not get it all the way. I might get it well enough to get the right questions, or maybe I got a copy of the teacher's book, so I looked them up in the back. But at least that is an interaction with the right answer. And this forces me to stop and answer it before I move on, which is important, especially if the next thing requires that I understand the previous thing. If good learning is scaffolded, right? And we have to learn the basics, and then we use the basics for the next thing, and then we use that for the next thing until we reach the ultimate plateau and start to teach this because we've dedicated our lives as professors.
You can also use it kind of as a choose your own adventure type thing where students can choose which direction they want to go into or choose if they want to see something. If they already know this topic, then they can go on to the next thing. So you can add navigation in there so that they feel like they're having a choice in what it is that they're learning.
So actually, a couple slides ago, you misinterpreted the 1, 2, 3, 4 kind of thing.
As
Any
a
direction you want to go.
Branching
That's the
narrative.
kind of thing.
Yeah,
It's actually the next slide. If you just
Oh,
advance.
Hey, you can see what that looks like. Thank you. And this idea is choice, right? And choice is so important in learning because if you tell me to learn just what I need to know, and I'll do it because I have to. There's this extrinsic motivation of grades, and parents want me to do this, so and I need to get a job, so I will follow your very set things. But if I get a chance to go in there and say, "Ooh, I have freedom now. I have some agency in this class. This is great because it gives me, I feel empowered. I feel like by making that choice, I'm taking ownership of this or that, rather than you're telling me exactly what to do and leading me, kicking and screaming through."
You have to go down both paths, but here you get to choose which one you go down first.
And oftentimes you'll set it up so that you go down one path, and then later on we're going to take you down the other path anyway, right? Because there's some trickery involved in that as well, because we want everyone to get all the information. Margaret.
Yeah, just in addition to your point, I think this is a good example of how we can actually use our internal marketing and our branding and our company message to customize the learning. So this is the difference between, hey, why not just read the textbook versus we want to engage our learners and we want to then create this and apply our philosophical values into the learning, but you can't do that in a textbook.
Right, and so the customization by the instructor. Right. How many times as instructors have we seen read chapter 1? You can skip chapter 2, 4, 5, and 6. Right. We make these choices. We curate the content for our students all the time. Course readers, same thing. Right. This article, that article, the other article. Whole huge swaths of things that we do not value and we do not think is important for you to learn to achieve the goals of the course. But they're in the textbook anyway, so yeah, that customization is good. I feel like I saw another hand. Carrie.
Have you talked about active learning already?
No.
But that's, to me, the most obvious reason that we do interactivity is to create an opportunity for a student to actually do something instead of be passive.
All right. So I think what you're referring to is Mickey Cheese 4 levels of active learning. There's passive, of course, but then active learning, and they're sort of the farther you go, the better you do. So it's not just are you active or are you not active, but active learning is watching you walk across the front of the lecture stadium and maybe taking some notes, right? Not very active, but it's active learning, and that's better than just sitting and watching the game on your screen, right? So level 1, active learning. Level 2, constructive learning, and in some ways this fits in with that. You are doing something, you're making these choices yourself. At the end, you're going to have a product. This is sort of a low level of constructive because the product is predetermined. But at least you're helping to press the buttons, to follow through, to make the choices, and that level of agency, again, really helps with that. The top level is interactive, and interactive is where you create something with a peer or a intelligent agent. And that can be the instructor that you sit down with and you work together, work through a problem. It can be with a small group work. And those levels of figuring things out together, being able to see where we each bring in a little piece of information, different perspectives, ways to understand things differently, helps us. Because if I only see and understand things one way, that I'm used to, I've learned it this much. If I can figure out how Lisa has done it and how she gets it too, it's like, oh, now I see it from this side and from this side. So that interactive is even farther. So working on this by yourself at home, at least you're higher up on that hierarchy of types of active learning. That's good. Putting these together as a group is even better. Having your students make these, wow. I mean, we're not there yet. Not for articulate storyline. However, Pressbooks? Let's talk about Pressbooks. Can students make this with Pressbooks? Make an interactive element in Pressbooks? Anyone want to talk about that?
somebody else can go. I was just thinking probably Wiki would be a really good thing to do for that instead of Pressbooks, just for ease of use, but maybe Naomi can have other ideas about that.
I know that there are a lot of instructors on campus who are doing this kind of interactive work, and in fact, Anna Andrzejewski, I'm terrible with names and I've forgotten how to pronounce it, but she has worked with helping students and has actually co-written an interactive textbook about working with students and producing interactive texts. And Smart Martin has also done some really cool work with having her students co-curate a museum guide as part of her work. So I helped with the training for some of the people who are working with this. And because a lot of people have experience with WordPress, and Pressbooks is based on WordPress, for many students, it's not actually as high a barrier to entry. And because they can set up, free access to Pressbooks through UW, and they don't have to use a complicated set of tools and potentially access a proprietary system, they often find it easier to co-curate those materials.
And this is what I see as one of the big advantages of Pressbooks. You cannot do as many fancy things as you can in Articulate Storyline as in Pressbooks. It is not that robust. It is, however, much more accessible because it's based on the WordPress platform, as Naomi said, and that's pretty drop dead simple. With drop down sometimes. So they can get it. And then they have started to participate. Again, there's that engagement in your learning. They are creating something that is useful for maybe the next semester of students. So they're like, instructor, Professor so-and-so, you're terrible at teaching this, and I would not do it this way. So let me create this Pressbook chapter or whatever and show you how it works or how you should do it. And you can actually have, 6 chapters on the same topic done by 6 different groups, and they would be different because everybody approaches learning in their own customized way.
And you don't have to pay them, right?
And free labor, right? They're paying you.
And in fact, one of the cool things that people are doing, because Pressbooks is the platform many people use to make open textbooks, is they're saying, hey, there's this open textbook and it's really Western centered, but our class is thinking about perspectives outside of the Western cultural hegemony. And so we want to actually adapt this textbook so we can just make a clone very quickly. And what the students can do is write the sections that are missing. So it is that interactive production of knowledge.
And the personalization. So if Cliff is interested in one particular aspect and we don't go into it in the class, we can say, all right, final project, you fill out that area and you make something that fits your worldview and your perspective of this. Fantastic. Now, next semester, as an instructor, I can say, here's the one that I did. Here are 5 other examples done by people just like you. And so you've planted the seed for participation of your students in the next semester. And you've already shown them that they can do it because the previous class did. And you guys are just as smart as the previous class. So
if you'd like to see what that looks like in practice, I've also posted the latest art history collaboration at the bottom of the lab notes. So this is co-produced with grad students, but people who work with undergrads as well.
the what's in the jug?
Mm-hmm.
And actually, let's go through this because we went through a little bit of the articulate, so we can sort of compare.
So the acknowledgement page is incomplete, but if you go on to the next couple of pages, you'll be able to see some of the interactive. So if you press either the arrow button to the right or at the very bottom of the page.
There's that little next. This one here, you got the next introduction, but you do have it set up so that the arrows work. All right, and this was created by students?
Co-created by grad students working with a museum studies class. So they eventually used the fact that Pressbooks can also convert into a printed PDF text or an e-text to use this as the source for a printed catalog as well.
So instead of a 5-page essay or a 30-page essay at the end of the semester, that is all text, maybe a couple of graphics pasted into it and printed off and given to you. You can actually have them do interactive things with H5P and video included, and so it's a much richer way to write that final paper, if you will. All right, so we've got video here, and that's in Kaltura, it looks like. So art that was curated, several examples, the next button. Some text.
This is kind of a non-linear menu that you can select different portions of the exhibit.
So you want to learn about green polka dots or the shamrock? So there, boom. All kind. I mean, it's not super fancy. You don't have the stand-in art characters doing this necessarily. You can probably find those or make your own, but yeah.
If you scroll down on one of them, there's like detailed images. If you open one of the other jugs.
Okay. Let's look at this blue one.
And yeah, there's one where there's another one I saw where you could even get to a detailed image of it. Like one of the first ones. But anyway.
Oh. All right, we'll go back to the big pile of jugs.
Like an image zoom.
Yeah, the very first one, the bluish. Sorry, that. Yeah,
Okay.
that red Wedgwood one.
Diceware.
And then it had this little icon for detail.
All right, now this strikes me as an H5P element because it's got that big plus click on me sort of thing. That when I roll over it, like, choose me. So I'll do that. I'm gonna make, and then looks like I make it full screen. Look at the detail. Is this
That is just the detail.
That's it.
Oh.
All right, but yeah, larger picture. And creating these in H5P. Are you all familiar with H5P? All right, I'm just gonna give you some homework here because it's a really easy URL to look up, h5p.org. And they have they've got an example on the front page. They have several examples actually on the front page. How to do it is very easy. Featured clients, they've got like 30 or 40 and they're adding new ones all the time. Different quizzes, single choice, memory games, mark the words, interactive video, speak the words. So language acquisition, I imagine, Lauren, you use that. And Lindsay, you said you work in second language as well. Do you use that?
I try to use all of them.
Really?
On purpose, like
Do you have a favorite?
to speak the words is nice. I'm not sure, how it would, connect to Canvas or how a teacher would,
If I got LTI for you.
Let's talk, okay.
When I did it, it didn't record. Like it was just,
Yeah.
when I refreshed the page, it was gone. So it was good for like the learner, like to hear yourself back, saying something, but, it didn't keep it. So I don't know where it goes or if you can maybe.
Right.
Let's do this and then we're gonna have you explain what you're about to explain, okay, Lauren?
You got it.
All right, short Spanish test, answer the following questions in the test. How well you know basic Spanish? I'm gonna click on start course. Good day in Spanish is?
Buen dia.
Buenos dias.
Buenos dias.
Oh, I forgot to push to speak. Wait. Good day in Spanish is? Oh, wait, I have to allow my microphone.
Buenos dias.
Buenos dias.
Didn't you hear me?
Yeah, you have to do it far away.
All right, well, I'm not.
Wait, yeah, yes.
Shout it real
That's
loud.
the problem that's the problem with it.
So it doesn't speak back to you?
It's too specific. Like,
Wait, so both of those are accurate. But it's not really wrong, it's just not the answer that the person who created that example put
Quiz
in.
question.
So that's the problem with all of those speech things is that it really can't be self-checked in some cases.
Okay.
Because there's multiple ways of saying.
But we're not in Canvas, right?
No, you're not in
Do you have to
Canvas right now.
link to this from within Canvas to experience this?
Okay, so, This is h5p.org, and so this is all free and self-check. h5p.com, if you purchase the h5p.com instance, you get the LTI, which takes all of the data and goes right to your gradebook in Canvas. Madison has not done that yet. My program has done that, just specifically for my program. So, and it works quite well. But then you're working in h5p.com, which is it's the same but separate instance, and that's where you can get the data. The other options is you can pay for an external thing to get the analytics, but with us using Canvas, it makes more sense.
This is where I make an official disclaimer here as the program director. H5P is not a UW-Madison supported tool, except through Pressbooks. And that, I believe, does not connect to.
It does.
Connect to Canvas gradebook.
We can make it connect.
Okay.
We can make it.
All right, based on the expression on Andrew's face, I'm wondering that I'm sensing a little hesitation in, you don't want me to say, so the workaround, if you want to use H5P, no, okay, I won't say that.
Yeah, so it's complicated. And you
Okay.
can, the information is all in the KD docs if you wanted to try to set it up yourself, but we recommend you don't because it's very complicated. And I mean, that's why they hired us, is because nobody wants to set it up themselves. So you can contact us, we can help you set up the integrations between your Pressbooks and the H5P content and the Canvas gradebook. But we definitely recommend you contact us for help with that because it's not easy.
And we're using H5P outside, so there is, if your department or whatever wants to purchase that, you probably could figure out who to talk to do that, but that's.
And is it complicated for you?
It is
through
not
your other-
complicated it is not complicated, but the admin has to put the key into
Into your Canvas
into your
sub-account
Canvas
admin.
sub-account in order for you to be able to access it.
Sub-admin account?
Yeah, and what's nice about using Pressbooks too is we do have reporting that we can get from your Pressbooks H5P content. So I know you said you don't get reports.
No, you do. When
You do.
when you have the LTI in Canvas, you get it.
So like you
through
can
all of
look
that.
at how students answered particular
Yes.
questions. That's really
Yes.
nice. Yeah.
And without going through Pressbooks to do it.
So just as we started the conversation with this idea of integration, faculty don't want to have to deal with this. If you don't want to deal with this, the email is learn@uwsupport@. Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So if we go through, if we use that, through Pressbook, we don't have to purchase that separately and we'll do pretty much the
Right,
same
you
thing.
won't have to purchase it separately. But it's less simple.
It's less.
So I worked with Andrew and Mallory. In fact, Mallory's cube is about 4 feet away from my cube, and Andrew's is like 6 or 7, so he's way.
Do you hear them swearing a lot when requests come in?
No, I talked to somebody just yesterday, and I had a pretty woven conversation about the complexities of like what Pressbooks is bringing to our world, because Pressbooks is technically supported, but
So more easily supported ways to help them do the kinds of things that they want to do. So we're not, squash the good learning, squash the good teaching. On the contrary, we want more people to do it. We just want to figure out how to do it in a way that is sustainable, because if the support costs, and this is how we started off with what is this integration? It's not really integration. If that cost is too high, if the effort is too high, and the sustainability is too low because we've got it integrated, and next week the big assignment is due and now they change something and it all breaks, that stinks for the instructor, it stinks for the students, it interrupts the flow of the semester, of the course, and it causes undue stress on everybody, including the people at the other end of the phone that you're like, this stopped working. And yeah, yay, go people. So yeah, be nice to our people, and is it getting easier?
Yeah.
Yeah, they're figuring it
It's
out.
definitely getting better.
Yeah.
for sure.
So perhaps play around with it on your own. Don't build something super complicated next week and get it supported for the end of the semester. But, keep in touch and ask for updates and see if it's, maybe over the summer it'll all be perfect, and the integration will be just as easy as the Articulate storyline integration.
And when you get occasional surveys from Do It about this kind of stuff, be sure to chime in, because this is exactly what we're trying to, we're asking, what technology are you using, and what for, and what, are there any other products out there we need to be looking at? So.
Let's talk about the ease of use of H5P within Pressbooks, or let's separate them two a little bit. How, has anyone used both Pressbooks and Storyline? Would you like to say a few words on how easy it is for the different things to be created? What is the learning curve on one versus the other?
Pressbooks is easier.
Oh yeah, Storyline's learning curve is steep.
Storybooks is steep, so steep learning curve, expensive license. Oh, by the way, we have 50 licenses on campus.
Until May 10th, and then we are not providing licenses anymore.
Will you be providing support?
Yes.
Okay, good.
So you have until May 10th.
Yeah, definitely don't be a stranger, but yeah, we're not providing licenses anymore. And Brian McNerland is the person to talk about that. Not me. I didn't decide.
I can put an email on those thing here. Okay. Yeah, send it to Learn at UW. They will forward it to Brian for that next week. So it is available. There are 50 licenses that can be checked out.
Yeah, I don't know how many are currently being used right now, but there's information in those knowledge-based documents about accessing a Storyline license if you want to do that before the end of the semester.
On the other hand, Pressbooks, H5P, and h5p.org.com is free to use. It doesn't do as much yet, and maybe it will go that way. I believe, I sense that the winds are shifting towards more support and more integration. And it's easy. It's pretty easy. These interactions are easy to do. I'm just going to say that.
I also just wanted to point out the download and embed options.
Yeah.
So one of the nice things about H5P is it's connected to a network of educators who are really excited to be producing this content. So if you want to either embed content or copy something to your own resource, or say you have a framework in like Swahili and you're like, this is a really cool language learning activity, but I teach Urdu. Maybe I'll use the framework, but I'll copy the activity and then modify the details. You can do that in a way that you can't with proprietary systems. I've got a big bee in my bonnet about proprietary systems, so you might notice a theme.
So the ease of embedding this sort of stuff is super easy. I just took the embed code. I clicked on that embed thing. I didn't make any changes. You can change the size and such, but I just copied it. I go into Canvas. I click edit on whatever page I want to do. I'm going to go to my HTML editor. Let's put it right. Let's put it at the top. Let's put it at the top. Give me a couple spaces. I paste it in there. I hit save. And now we have a short Spanish test at the beginning of our page. So, and it's just as easy to do that in WordPress or Pressbooks as well. So this, however, the short Spanish test, as we pointed out, is not perfect because there's different ways of doing things, and it doesn't connect to the gradebook. So it's a good self-check, perhaps, the different H5P elements, and there are so many of them, and they're worth exploring. Each one has an example that you can go through, and again, they're very easy to make. It's almost ridiculous.
I'll bring up, security is a problem for me in the kind of content that I'm putting up. So for H5P, whatever you're creating lives on with them, and then you put it into, is Pressbooks, is that something we have here, or is that also an external thing? So
We have our
Pressbooks
own
is,
instance of
Pressbooks,
Yeah.
okay.
Yeah, so, and then the H5P that you built in Pressbooks is just in there. It's not on the H5P.org.
Sweet, thank you.
So Pressbooks is a thing that is supported by the Unison Consortium, which UW-Madison, you may have heard of Unison, unison.org, is an early contributor to, and it's several large universities, several like 20 now or more, are getting together, sort of working on shared resources. And Pressbooks is one that they sort of created or bought or somehow support. Thank you for giving me that affirmation because I'm kind of making stuff up here. And I'm not making that up. That is all real. But I might be getting some of the details wrong. So it is a supported tool that we are actually invested in. Like not just us invested, but other large universities as part of this thing. So that's why I think that the future is sort of bright or positive for that. What haven't we talked about here?
So before we leave, I would love to hear them talk about what you don't like about the way things are integrated right now in Canvas. I'm just curious what you're envisioning that is not happening.
Yes, me too. Talk to us, John Kevin.
Do you want me to start and you tell me where I'm wrong?
Okay.
So, we are using the, I will say, traditional method of exporting to SCORM, importing to Canvas, which brings them into Canvas as an assignment. You bring in your assignment, and our ideal situation is one of our end users comes to a page and it says, hey, we want you to watch this articulate module. We want it to open in a new window. We want it, if we're using Rise or you have a table of contents that tracks how far you've gone so you can come back to it, that it keeps that data. What we're finding is that if you use the Canvas method, you click something, and you want it to open in a new page. Now you get a new page that says, now click here to go to a new page. Okay, you do your your articulate module and you close that window. Well, when you come back, it says, okay, now refresh your page to go back to the page. Okay, so it sounds like some of you are familiar with this. We really don't like it because it's not user-friendly, it's not intuitive, and if we're talking about UDL, it's just an extra step.
Yeah,
It's
just
an extra
user
step.
experience.
Why do that? So we're looking at alternative workaround methods, and we have a few that we've mocked up, and we're gonna have a focus group, kind of look at and say, okay, which one is easiest for you, which, that does what we want it to do, it comes down to form and function, right? So we want it to be pretty, and we want it to function in a nice way. And so we have some methods, we're gonna have people test it out, but I was curious what other people have done.
Let me rephrase or ask a question for clarification. If you didn't go through the SCORM method and you just embedded it as within the page as an iframe, you would lose the tracking and you would lose the connection to the gradebook, correct? But you would simplify the numbers of clicks and such. On the other hand, because it's set up as sort of a full page thing, you would have it within the Canvas structure of the toolbars and the menus and stuff, and so it sometimes is really hard to design for that narrow space, correct?
Yeah, I mean, that's one of the things we're looking at is embedding it within the page. Again, that comes down to certain
Trade-offs.
personalities and preferences within the organization who don't like that.
Yep.
The other issue that we have investigated in terms of doing what you were talking about is it will not work in IE or in Edge Mobile. Now, to me, but we also have to accept that there's probably people who are still coming to join.
Yes. Yeah.
And so if you did the iframe option, or kind of an iframe, does it, just help me understand, there would still be the button that would allow you to maximize the screen, right? So they would kind of have an appearance of being at a, I mean, does the player of the iframe allow you to maximize it?
Doesn't seem like it. There's no maximizing, and that's the method that won't work in IE or Edge Mobile.
Oh, that's funny.
So an iframe is a
So-
fixed
I get it.
object.
It feels like that to us when we blocked it out.
Okay.
So I don't know if there's a way to adjust that.
So Lisa, to answer your question, no, an iframe is not necessarily a fixed object. When I embedded this, it gave me a chance to set the the amount. I believe that iframes can also be adjustable, flexible, right?
Yeah, the width of the iframe can be set to either a fixed pixel width or a percentage.
600 pixels or 100% or 80% or whatever. Yeah, okay, so then as I make the window smaller, it gets smaller, so you don't lose some of the stuff on the edges. So if I'm watching it on a small laptop or Chromebook or whatever, that's a terrible thing, right? As a learner, you try to go through something and you can only see like this much of it. Yeah, that's the kind of stuff that gets in the way of accessibility, of access by everyone.
Also the scroll bars, you know, Canvas will just like automatically put scroll bars in there and squeeze the real estate to what they want.
And then you've got the outer scroll bar for the thing, and you've got an inner scroll bar, and then you might have like 4 layers of scroll bars.
You
And
have
you
it
don't
right
know
in
which
this
one.
class here. I'm looking at that, I'm like, oh, that's annoying.
Yeah.
I mean, I understand, like sometimes you have no choice, but it's kind of poor design. Like
Yeah.
we want to shine in our courses, and if it's sort of like clunky, then I mean, you know, instructors we're working with look bad.
Yeah.
You know, students complain. You know,
There's nothing quite as beautiful as the printed page, right? You have
Yeah, right,
total control over this. They're not going to like try to squeeze it
So
or
we're gonna
anything.
redesign everything in Second Life and go back.
Right.
there you go.
So Kevin, where's John wrong?
No, I think he summarized it well.
Are there any other thoughts on integration of Storyline? Or do you have any other follow-up questions about that?
Well, another issue, another pain point that I have experienced
Good.
with the SCORM objects in Canvas is that when you initially upload them to Canvas, that part is pretty straightforward. You import it as a graded assignment, for example. But then let's say a couple of months later, you need to make a revision to the course. And you want to re-upload and replace the one that's already there. And the process of this SCORM, this LTI SCORM tool that Canvas is using, they have not accounted for the possibility that you may have made a spelling error somewhere and you need to replace the current one.
I see a lot of
You can get
nods.
it done, but it's this workflow that's very tricky. And if you've got a bunch of, let's say you've got 15,000 grades in this HIPAA course, for example, just theoretically, and you want to replace this SCORM object without impacting the grade column. For
Everybody gets to take it over again.
It's a very, delicate process.
Andrew, can you answer that question? I don't, it seems to me it was not that bad. Because
So,
I've had to re-upload
because you're
several
using
times.
XAPI,
So that might be
and he's using SCORM, and there is a difference between how those are uploaded and XAPI.
Maybe if we can
You can
continue with this
definitely-
XAPI, maybe if things get easier with that might be.
But also, in your situation, if you did find a spelling error, you would still have to go into the module and storyline, fix that spelling error, and re-upload it.
Right, but that's all I have to do. And as far as I'm concerned, like it didn't impact our grades, right? Okay, good.
All right, Naomi, and then I want, right as before Naomi speaks, I want to say, if there are any other questions, think about it, and then as soon as she's getting done talking, let's hit it.
Oh, if you want to do the same thing with the Pressbooks integration, you would just go into the WordPress page and edit it, so that'll show up live in all the Canvas pages.
Yeah,
So-
Pressbooks again is super easy because you don't have to re-upload. It's live, sort of. Tom.
I just wanted to share an experience that I've had. I'm Tom Crocus over at AT. I supported the Canvas migration from D2L over to Canvas, and there were a lot of my clients that had rich media in some form, whether it be video or Camtasia, Captivate, Articulate, things like that. It's really important to keep your development files somewhere where you can access them if you need to make these edits. There's so many people that have, they've had this rich media for 7 years. The people that develop it don't even work here anymore, and they're like, okay, we want to move this over to Canvas. Oh, we want to make some edits too because it's outdated. They don't have any of these development files. They pretty much have to start from scratch. So it's really important to have some sort of strategy of keeping your stuff backed up so you can access these components and be able to export them, say, in HTML5 or any of these other outputs that you need. So when you're developing these things, make sure you have some sort of
So let's actually end with Carolyn's initial question of effort versus sustainability, because that fits in directly with what you're saying. So quick poll, raise your hand. Is all of this worth it?
No.
It's fun to work on the programs, but,
When is it worth it?
When-
How do you figure out when?
Yeah, how do we decide what is worth?
I think our students respond really positively to these versus the recorded lectures.
Okay.
It's like sitting there for 60 minutes watching somebody talk versus doing these. They love these.
Okay.
All of them first.
Margaret?
I love that question. I often ask that by clients when I'm working with them on instructional design, because there are formulas out there. As you know, there's different levels of instructional design. And you want to look at how many hours that's going to require for development versus what's your target audience, what's the impact. I mean, I've seen projects go off the rails because, oh wait, we want to change that font. Gosh, right? I mean, that adds hours and hours and hours to development. So when you go into a project, I think you should do a calculation that says we're gonna limit development time to X based on X number of people, based on.
Set your scope.
If you don't, this will just go off the rails.
Yeah, there's that keep it simple thing, right? And
But
does Articulate let you keep it simple? Sometimes can, if you control it.
and the simple has the other cutting edge of, if it looks kind of B-rate, it reflects poorly. And because I put out a lot of B-rate stuff because people say they want it quick, and then it gets out there and it's like, oh, that's like, you're umming too much, or there's not that kind of flow. These aren't attractive enough images or slides, and it's like, I guess.
And this is another really good reason to have the students create it, because theirs is not going to look good, and they will be much more sympathetic to the way that yours looks once they have that experience. What you have to deal with. Thank you all for coming, and on your way out, if you could just hit a few check boxes and give us some feedback on that. Thanks especially to, well, you guys all contributed, so thank you very much.
Hey, John, final question just for me. Like,
Yeah.
So what's the term programmed learning? What does that apply to?
So the idea is that in face-to-face learning, you can ask a question and I can respond to it, or I can ask you a question based on what I've seen you learn. In programmed learning, you read a text and there's a question that I've already programmed in based on what I assume you should have gotten out of this, or what I assume you should get out of this.
So programmed as an adjective
Just
implies.
You don't have a smart.
I had to look it up too because I hadn't heard that before.
Okay, let me repeat that. If you're interested in H5P, there is currently a very good chance, 100% chance.
We have the dates, trying to get the signatures up through system right now.
The H5P conference will be held, the international conference for H5P will be held here at Madison in May of 2020. Fancy technology.
I don't know, I don't have to.
You're gonna have to come back to another active teaching lab to get updates on this. That's
Wow, well done.
Yeah, I don't know if there are lister, well, when we get the signatures, we'll send it out on whatever.
That's the
lister.
appropriate time. Yeah.